Air France Flight 4590 was a Concorde flight operated by Air France, which was scheduled to run from Charles de Gaulle International Airport near Paris to John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City. The flight was chartered by German company Peter Deilmann Cruises. All passengers were on their way to board the cruise ship MS Deutschland in New York City for a 16-day cruise to South America. But what happened to that passenger flight will shock you. This was the only fatal crash of a Concorde. It was the beginning of the end for the Concorde as an airliner. The type was retired 3 years later. On 25th of July 2000, Air France Flight 4590, a Concorde passenger jet on an international charter flight from Paris to New York, crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 109 people on board and 4 on the ground. It was the only fatal Concorde accident during its 27-year operational history. Whilst taking off from Charles de Gaulle Airport, the aircraft ran over debris on the runway, causing a tire to explode and disintegrate. Tire fragments, launched upwards at great speed by the rapidly spinning wheel, violently struck the underside of the wing, damaging parts of the landing gear, thus preventing its retraction and causing the integral fuel tank to rupture. Large amounts of fuel leaking from the rupture ignited, causing a loss of thrust in the left-hand side engines 1 and 2. The aircraft lifted off, but the loss of thrust, high drag from the extended landing gear, and fire damage to the flight controls made it impossible to maintain control. The jet crashed into a hotel in nearby Gonesse 2 minutes after takeoff. All 9 crew and 100 passengers on board were killed, as well as 4 people in the hotel. 4 other people sustained slight injuries. The wind at the airport was light and variable that day, and was reported to the cockpit crew as an 8-knot tailwind as they lined up on runway 26R17 on 70. At 16:38 Cest, 5 minutes before the Concorde departed, Continental Airlines Flight 55, a McDonnell Douglas DC-1030, took off from the same runway for Newark International Airport and lost a titanium alloy strip that was part of the engine cowl, identified as a wear strip about 435 millimeters long. The DC-10 did not crash or malfunction later. At 16:42, the Concorde ran over this piece of debris during its takeoff run while the aircraft was doing 185 miles per hour, cutting the right front tire of its left main wheel bogie and sending a large chunk of tire debris into the underside of the left wing at an estimated speed of 140 meters per second. It did not directly puncture any of the fuel tanks, but it sent out a pressure shock wave that ruptured the number 5 fuel tank at its weakest point, just ahead of the left landing gear. Well, leaking fuel gushing out from the bottom of the wing was most likely ignited either by an electric arc in the landing gear bay or through contact with hot parts of the engine. 120-123 engines 1 and 2 both surged and lost all power, likely due to ingestion of hot gases and tire debris, and then engine 1 slowly recovered over the next few seconds. 17. A large plume of flame developed, and the flight engineer shut down engine 2 in response to a fire warning and the captain's command. Air traffic controller Gilles Logelin noticed the flames before the Concorde was airborne and informed the flight crew. However, the aircraft had passed V1 speed, at which point takeoff was considered unsafe to abort. The plane did not gain enough airspeed, with the 3 remaining engines as damage to the landing gear. Bay door prevented the retraction of the undercarriage. 134-135, the aircraft was unable to climb or accelerate, and its speed decayed during the course of its brief flight. Engine number 1 surged again, but did not fully recover, and the right wing lifted from the asymmetrical thrust, banking the aircraft to over 100 degrees. The crew reduced the power on engines 3 and 4 in an attempt to level the aircraft, but they lost control due to deceleration and the aircraft stalled. The aircraft struck the ground left wing low after a heading change of nearly 180 degrees, crashing into the Hotelissimo Le Relais Bleu Hotel. A video of the burning plane on takeoff and the aftermath of the crash was captured by a passing driver. The crew tried to divert to nearby Paris-Le Bourget Airport, but accident investigators stated that a safe landing would have been highly unlikely given the aircraft's flight path. The cockpit voice recorder recorded the last intelligible words in the cockpit. A few days after the crash, all Air France Concordes were grounded, pending an investigation into the cause of the crash and possible remedies. Air France's Concorde operation had been a money-losing venture, and it is claimed that the airplane had been kept in service as a matter of national pride. British Airways claimed to make a profit on its Concorde operations. According to Jacques Lowe, a Concorde pilot, until the crash of Air France Flight 4590 at Paris, the British Airways Concorde operation made a net average profit of about £30 million, equivalent to £44 million in 2019, a year. Despite the accident, Concorde was still considered among the world's safest aircraft at the time, a reputation it continues to hold after its retirement. This was the only fatal accident of Concorde's entire career. The official investigation was conducted by France's Accident Investigation Bureau, the Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, BEA. Post-accident investigation revealed that the aircraft was over the maximum takeoff weight for ambient temperature and other conditions, and 810 kilogram, 1,790 pounds, over the maximum structural weight, loaded so that the center of gravity was aft of the takeoff limit. Fuel transfer during taxiing left the number 5 wing tank 94% full. A 30-centimeter spacer normally keeps the left main landing gear in alignment, but it had not been replaced after recent maintenance. The BEA concluded that this did not contribute to the accident. The final report was issued on 16th of January 2002. In the wake of the disaster, the entire Concorde fleet was grounded. It returned to service on November 7, 2001, following the implementation of various modifications to the airframe, but to limited commercial success. The type was finally retired by Air France in May 2003 and by British Airways in November of the same year. What do you think of this fatal crash? Let us know in the comment section below. And that wraps up today's content. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and also make sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so that you won't miss out on our future contents.